Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the latest on the U.S. military action in Iran as American forces suffer casualties and the conflict spreads across the Middle East. Also tonight, ASU students team up with seniors to increase social connection and share information on wellness, technology, and culture. And an internationally renowned classical pianist comes to Arizona to share her talents. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Christina Estes, in for Ted Simons. The U.S. war on Iran began over the weekend with joint Israeli airstrikes that killed Iran's supreme leader. The conflict is now spreading across the Middle East as Iran and its proxies launch strikes against Israel and U.S. allies in the region. 6 U.S. service members have been killed in action and 18 others have been wounded in a military campaign that President Trump says could last weeks. Joining us now to discuss how this conflict is unfolding is Daniel Rothenberg, co-director for the Future Security Initiative at ASU. Professor, thanks so much for being here. Let's start with why this happened. Why did the U.S. strike Iran?
Thank you so much for having me here. You ask a great question. We don't necessarily know. By that I mean it hasn't been made clear by the administration exactly what the purpose of this war is. We've heard that it's to make it impossible for Iran to develop nuclear weapons. We've heard that it's to protect the Iranian people and their popular protests against the regime. We've heard it's to take out the ballistic weapon systems. So, we don't fully know. And I think we really should have a clearer idea as to what is the purpose.
The president has said that he thinks this war will last 4 to 5 weeks. We have at least 6 U.S. service members who've been killed. What do you think the public's, I don't think appetite is the right word, but what do you think the American public will think about a longer war?
Well, the polling so far suggests that Americans are not in favor of a war with Iran. But, obviously we're a little bit past that point right now. I think it's important to look at, what is the justification for the war? So this was a preventive war, a war of choice. It wasn't really a preemptive war. That is to say, it wasn't as if there was some imminent threat presented by Iran whereby the U.S. responded in out of self-defense. We're in a very different situation here. And I think Americans, given that this was a war of choice, that it was a decision by the administration to attack when it did, I think we should hear greater clarity as to what the purpose is. And I think Americans would probably rally behind a clear explanation of a reasonable and appropriate war. And I think just the opposite is true. I think there'll be great opposition to a war that doesn't quite make sense, that isn't clearly communicated.
We have heard opposition from some members of Congress. What do you expect they will do?
Well, this is an interesting question. In the Constitution, Congress has the power to declare war. We also have the War Powers Act under U.S. domestic law, whereby the president can initiate a conflict of this kind. And then there's a process whereby Congress can terminate those operations. There's a 60 and 90-day window. What will happen next, we don't really know. But it's fair to say that there ought to be some back and forth whereby the executive presents some kind of clarity as to the purpose of this war to Congress. And then we hear a response. And I would just add that, we live in a democracy, and the test of how things play out in a democracy is not just the outcome. That's to say what happens in Iran and throughout the region, is also process. And I think failing to engage clearly with the process will do great damage to, U.S. standing in the world and to the ways in which, the American public responds to these efforts.
I'd like you to weigh in on some comments that the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said. He said this won't be a, quote, politically correct war with, quote, stupid rules of engagement. As someone who has studied civilian harm and military conduct, what does this signal to you? What does that mean?
Well, Secretary Hegseth is certainly right that there shouldn't be stupid rules of engagement, but rules of engagement provide, guidance for those on the ground. To manage the use of force. And there's a widespread commitment by the U.S. military. It's clear in U.S. military training. It's clear in domestic law. It's clear in international law that civilians should be protected in armed conflict. Let's hope that these are just sort of rhetorical claims that that are more, a jab at those opponents of the regime and not really military policy. Military policy, according to the U.S. military, adheres to the rules, to proper management of force, and to protection of civilians.
I mentioned you have studied civilian harm and military conduct extensively. What about the civilian cost in Iran? What are we seeing now, and what do you think will come?
Well, this is a little hard to say. They've so far been fairly targeted strikes. There's a school that was hit that had some quite severe civilian casualties that's been pretty well reported on. We don't know where all this is going because one of the difficult things about conflicts of this kind is escalation. We've already seen a fairly widespread response by Iran targeting a number of different sites throughout the region. Over 9 countries have been hit. There have been casualties in a number of them. If the plan is to keep this going for 4 or 5 weeks or to some, unclear time period, there will likely be more civilian casualties. But again, I think it isn't just civilian casualties. Sometimes civilians are killed in war. It's what is the point and purpose and focus of this war? The evaluation of civilian harm in conflict, both legally but also morally in a way that I think most viewers could understand. It has to do with the sense of necessity, the purpose. The idea is that war should be really the last option. And if the situation is so dire, where if U.S. national security is so severely potentially impacted by something Iran's doing, then we should know what that is. And then I think with that kind of calculus, Americans would be more supportive of this sort of conflict. And the reverse is also true. If there's no real purpose and clarity as to what the U.S. is doing, then it's hard to imagine that the American public will be supportive.
So it sounds like you think there needs to be a clear message. Is that something that you think we will hear in the next 24, 48 hours?
No. I mean, we don't know, of course, but I think, clarity of purpose is not really the hallmark of this administration. One of the reasons not to be clear is you can sort of always declare victory if you're not clear as to what the purpose of your operation is. But this is really a different sort of use of military force and really kind of extraordinary in its military success so far. But in the end of the day, as certainly the post 9/11 wars should have taught most Americans, we don't really evaluate these wars in the long run based on just the extraordinary capacity of the U.S. military. It ends up being a question of politics and of what happens on the ground and how that reflects on the global economy and global society and life here back home.
Professor Daniel Rothenberg, we need to leave it there, and we so appreciate your time and your insight. Co-director of Future Security Initiative at ASU, thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Food lovers, get ready. I'm Chef Lydia Bastanich and I'm coming to Arizona. Join me on April 11th for the Check Please Arizona Food Festival, supporting Arizona PBS and presented by WeCoPac Casino and Resort. My friend Mark Carvel and some of Arizona's most delicious local restaurants will be there for this celebration of food, flavor, and fun. Tickets available now at azpbs.org/food festival. See you there.
I like to think that at Arizona Horizon we are unique in the way that we present information, public policy, sometimes news, these sorts of things, because we have conversations, and I don't want conversations, that human interaction, to go out of style. And I hope with Arizona Horizon it never goes out of style.
Arizona Horizon needs your support. Donate now and double the impact of your gift, thanks to the James and Barbara Ratcliffe Charitable Fund Challenge. Thank you.
For over 65 years, AARP has empowered people to choose how they live as they age. As a wise friend and fierce defender, we advocate for better health, financial security, and stronger communities. We are AARP.
Tonight, as part of our monthly AARP-sponsored segment that highlights issues important to older adults in Arizona, we'll be checking in with the ASU Community Collaborative. It's a student-run clinic and community center located in the historic Westward Ho in downtown Phoenix. It's home to 300 residents who are lower income, older, and may have disabilities. Joining us now is Stacey Gandy. She's the coordinator of the Community Collaborative and a clinical assistant professor at ASU School of Social Work. Thank you so much for coming in. We just saw some beautiful images of the exterior of Westward Ho. A lot of people have seen that. Set the scene for inside. When we're talking about the collaborative, what's going on?
Oh, so the inside is absolutely gorgeous. They have a beautiful ceiling in the lobby with pillars that back in the day were adorned with like this gold paint and just beautiful. And so they've left as much as they could within reason. Beautiful chandelier. So yeah, there's just a feeling of, you definitely get the historic, regal feeling inside the lobby.
And talk about who's coming in the building and what they're doing.
So in terms of the students,
yeah.
In terms of the students, we have students from social work, nursing, nutrition, program planning, music therapy, so a wide variety of disciplines that come in to practice what they're learning in classes, but then also just promote the well-being of the residents living at the Westward Ho.
So you're serving about 300 residents there. Most or all are lower income.
Yeah.
What are the most pressing or sometimes overlooked, I guess, needs that ASU students are able to help with?
I think the biggest need, that regardless of what discipline the students are from, really the biggest need that they support is social isolation. So we know that social isolation and disconnectedness is really a problem nationwide now. And we've known that with older adults, not all older adults though, but significantly older adults with low income, with
limited
low
options,
yes,
maybe too.
Then there really is some social isolation that can happen. And so we talk about whatever service you're providing, really one of the biggest things is just to connect with the residents and help them to feel seen and heard.
It's not just social work students. You have nursing students. You mentioned nutrition students, recreation therapy, community development. How in the world do you coordinate all of that under one roof?
Yes, our space that we can actually provide services is very small, so we try to be really creative in how and where we do that. So the Westward Ho allows us to use the ballroom on the second floor, which is a bigger space to do bigger events. And we try to space out services at different times. And then we also use the Concho Room, which is the historic lounge back in the day.
Ooh, that just brings wonderful images of social interaction, the lounge, and the history to be able to share that with people. What do you hope students walk away from after their experience working with residents of the Westward Ho?
One of our goals is we know that the population of older adults is growing rapidly. We also know that those going into work with older adults, those numbers are decreasing. And so our goal is to expose students to even working with older adults. They may decide that that is an area they want to specialize in. Or we know that even if they don't specialize in that area, they'll come across older adults in their work in one form or another. And so just to gain that experience of working with older adults and being more familiar with older adults.
And hopefully they will be older adults and appreciate what they did when they were younger. How do you think residents are taking this collaborative? What have you seen or heard?
Oh, the residents love working with the students, and the collaborative has become such an important piece in the residents' life. Unfortunately, when we have to close on breaks, because we are student run, so when we have to close on spring break or other breaks, winter break, we are open for summer, but on winter break especially, the residents will just tell us how much they missed us and missed our services and how it really limited what they have to do.
Well, thank you so much. It sounds like it's a fabulous and certainly much needed and benefiting both students and residents. Sandy Gandy with the Community Collaborative through ASU. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Went fast, huh?
Yes, it did.
Concert pianist Gil Bay has graced stages across Europe, the Middle East, and Latin America. Now she's in Arizona holding recitals and teaching a master class at ASU School of Music. Let's take a listen to Gil Bay playing in a recent performance. Oh my goodness. First, let's welcome her before I start talking to her. Gil Bay, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So you were 5 years old. Oh my gosh, you had your first solo recital at 5 years old. I was learning to read and taking naps in kindergarten. What do you remember about that, being 5 years old and having a solo recital?
Well, I had a very good teacher in the Netherlands, and I think that's my fortune. And we started actually immediately playing adagios and minuets of Mozart and Haydn concertos instead of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and etc.
Yes, that's what I was doing.
Yes. So I had a very good base, and I remember going to South Korea. I had never been in South Korea before, and my parents are originally from South Korea. And my teacher came with me, and we were walking around. It was a very big hall. It was for 2,000 people, actually. So at that time, when I was 5, I looked in the hall, and it seemed like enormous. And I remember walking through the public with my teacher, and I told her, you have to sit at a certain place, let's say row 3, seat number 15. And when I came on stage during the concert, I looked exactly where my teacher was, and I don't know, it felt just like a playground, and I had a lot of fun, remember.
That is not the playground I had at 5. So you mentioned that you were born to Korean parents. You were born in the Netherlands.
Yes.
I'm sorry, to
Yes.
Korean parents. You trained at a Dutch conservatory. You continued studying in Italy. I mean, you've performed across the world. Was that your intention, to be this big international star?
Well, it was not my intention specifically. My intention was to be a concert pianist, but I had no idea what that would be in the future. I love to play music. I come from a musical family. My mother is a violinist, so I started actually when I was 4 with the violin. And then I moved on to the piano also because I wanted to play with my mother, so we could play a duo. And my goal was never actually to become one of the most famous or most requested artists, but I love to play, I love to practice, and it was actually all my life. I had no idea at the beginning, and suddenly I was on this street to become a concert pianist, and I continued.
You're also a master class educator. You're teaching a lot of students. You were here conducting a master class at ASU, and you've taught students around the world. Are there certain things that you notice about students, or certain things that you tell them all sort of universal, or does it vary?
I had a very good basics, as I told you, and I think also my time in Italy has been very useful, and I learned a lot, and especially I learned how to practice. So most of the times with my students, wherever they are in Asia or South America or here in Phoenix, I give them the basics which they can apply also on other pieces. So when they're at home and there's no teacher around to tell them what to do and how to solve a problem in a certain passage, I try to give them the basics that they can apply everywhere. So, and I learn a lot by teaching. I learn actually more by teaching than when I am at home practicing.
What do you mean?
Well, sometimes when you're practicing alone at your house and you have a lot of concerts coming up and you're focused on certain pieces, you forget the basics and you forget, certain things that teaching helps you remind.
The basics, as you said,
Yes,
are always important,
always the
no matter
basics,
how.
yes.
I would love to get your perception on audiences when it comes to classical music, because I was trying to look up some statistics, and depending on the source, it's either really awful and everybody's dying and nobody's coming, or there's great growth with younger audiences. What do you see?
I see there's a big potential, and I think in this moment, the parents who are actually a little bit above my age, let's say, have the responsibility to teach, not teach, but make their kids familiar with classical music, because kids are like sponges. They take everything. If I'm born with 3 languages, so when a kid in music is a universal language, you have to understand it, and the more you hear it, you will understand it more, and you will love it. So I think as a parent, introducing classical music to the children is the best way to create the public for tomorrow.
Gail Bay, it has been a pleasure talking with you. We are out of time. I'm going to listen to your music more, but I would love to talk with you more. Thank you. I hope the rest of your time in Arizona is wonderful.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for joining us. I'm Christina Estes, in for Ted Simons. Have a great night.
Hello, I'm Alice Ferris, and we hope you enjoyed Arizona Horizon. For more than 40 years, viewers in Arizona have relied on Ted Simons and Arizona Horizon for in-depth coverage of issues of concern to our community. As you